Hi Tom, this is the last video. This is the final iteration of your new 2-gas propane butane system. So I want to go over the operation of the system and the installation quickly so that you've got one final video. So what we've done, as you can see, is you now have 2 butane bottles mounted forward. We still have the original propane system and the original propane regulator. So what I did was I took out the pressure gauge from the three-way at the regulator, and that allowed me to pipe in the butane system. Now I have this red isolation valve that I've showed you, and it's in the closed position for your butane system. So what that does is it allows you to run your propane system, and it allows you to run the butane system. When you run the propane system, which I'm going to set you up with initially, you turn on the propane, you make sure that the butane is in the off position and that the valve is closed. That doesn't allow propane to go back through the system and overpower this butane regulator that you see right here. Okay? The propane regulator puts out more pressure than the butane regulator. Now when you run out of propane, you're going to turn off the valve. This is important. You need to leave the tank in place. You always have to have a tank there, and you have to use the valve on the propane tank, this one or any other one, to stop butane from escaping the system. I couldn't find a valve that would go in this hose for the propane system, and as well, I didn't want to cut this hose to install one. So here in Palma, Mallorca, it's either metric or it's unavailable, as you know. So this is the best solution. And the system works perfectly, but you have to have a propane tank in place, and you have to have the valve closed so the butane, when it's turned on, does not escape backwards through the propane system. There's no isolation valve. The reason there's an isolation valve on the butane side is so that the more powerful propane regulator doesn't overpower the butane system when it's shut off. Okay, so we didn't want to destroy the diaphragm or possibly have a gas escape through the vent. So that's why this is closed in this position, on, off. As with all valves, across is off when you run propane. Now when you run out of propane, and I'm going to start you on propane, when you arrive at the boat, everything will be closed up, sealed off, propane will be turned on, and you'll actuate the solenoid valves at the range like you always do. When you run out of propane, you have the option of bringing up the partially filled propane bottles and putting them in place. Do it like you always do. Make sure that the butane valve stays in the off position. So when you run out of propane, and you can even use the orange bottle, because behind the propane tank, you'll see that you still have the adapter plate for the orange English propane tank. So you can use all the partial tanks that you have left that are partially full of propane. We're going to start you out on the fullest bottle you have. So if you don't want, when you run out, to substitute another propane bottle, go ahead and switch over to butane. But remember, leave the tank in position, leave it firmly held down, make sure that you close the valve on the propane system before you turn on your butane system. Okay? When you want to use butane, super easy. Come on up here, turn on the butane valve, the isolation valve, turn on the valve on top of the butane tank. Make sure that the valve is actually closed on the propane tank. Double check. Measure twice, cut once. And you're up and running on butane. When you want to swap out if you run out of butane and you want to swap to the other bottle that I have here in storage, your third bottle, I think we talked about it, you're going to keep it stored in the wet locker. When you want to switch to the second bottle, go ahead and close the isolation valve, close this valve here, You're going to disconnect the regulator, which, remember, is left-hand thread. Lay it off to the side. Swap out the tanks. Put the empty tank right here. Put it in the wet locker if you want to. Bring up the other one. Hook it back up. Turn it on. Open the valve. You're up and running on butane. So Tom, there's your system. I don't think I've left anything out. Congratulations on getting a 2-gas system for the boat here in Palma, Mallorca. It's been real difficult, but we're going to get you that extra valve from England so that as you travel north, you'll be able to top off these propane bottles with European Autogas, which is half butane, half propane. But remember, the bottles need to be empty. So don't think you're going to get them filled if they're not completely empty. So run them all the way out. If I left anything out, give me a call. Happy cruising, Tom. Have a great time.